Hello and welcome to another video dealing with health and wellness topics. Today's topic is going to be about joints, our physical bodies, and how we use force in them. So the idea that we kind of take our bodies for granted. Some of you may do some form of exercise. Those who have been working with me over the years doing Tai Chi, you know that I highly recommend Tai Chi for a lifelong way of developing strength and ability. So this presentation will go into some of the mechanics of joints and how we use them, but it will specifically focus on what we do with Tai Chi in regards to transferring force and protecting the joints. Now, you probably know this, but there are, a variety of classes or types of forces, from frictional. The one that we use a lot in Tai Chi is just the natural force of gravity. Then you'll actually, like the little worker there, you can apply a force from your physical body. And then there's some interesting ones within our body. We actually have a kind of a spring or compression force. We can implement a drag and friction forces by some of the movements. And this one here I find called the normal force is quite interesting. I like to think of it as the weighted force, and we use that a lot in Tai Chi. We won't be talking about the mechanical, magnetic, and the electric forces, although, as some of you may know, this is an aspect of Tai Chi that some people are interested in called Chi, C-H-I, or Ki. But we won't be talking about that aspect of it. We'll be sticking mainly to the mechanical side of things. And you might notice that, or already know that, there are specific types of joints. In the skull, we have a fibrous joint that doesn't move a lot, but it is designed to allow for expansion. And particularly for infants being born through the birth canal, the skull needs to compress to allow the baby to come through. And then there's the spine with the sort of cartilage joint in between them, and this is the one that kind of acts like a snake. Or slinky, very powerful, and of course your typical ball joint. But these can be classed into various joints. The key ones are here, and it's interesting that as I was looking at this, these are the joints that most people tend to have some problems with. There's a very complicated joint at C1 at the very top of the spine, and it has to provide for a number of degrees of freedom of movement. And it's a very complicated joint, and it can get jammed up quite readily. And your typical hinge joint, like at the elbow, and then the finger joints are quite interesting. These ones down here, the finger joints are interesting. The wrist joint tends to be an issue for a lot of people. And then, of course, you have your ankle joint. And then the big one that people have issues with are the hips. Now, it's my belief that through Tai Chi, we will lubricate. You notice all of these have this light blue area. That's called the synovial fluid. Synovial fluid is alive and has to be fed with nutrients. And the slow-moving gestures of Tai Chi promote circulation and actually can heal that synovial layer there, the pack. The joints can act like pulleys and levers, and they can multiply or increase the ability's force. If you think of each one of those little pulleys being a joint, so the idea here is the more joints that you can involve in a movement, the more power that you will be generating. And some of the joint, as I pointed out, like with the spine, has a compression force. And compressing can be very powerful. So you can take a small force, like on the right, and it can push a big force. Okay. And these are the directions we work with in Tai Chi. We go left and right, back and forth, and then we go on the diagonals. And there's an exercise called Four Corners that some of you may have practiced with me. And so these are the things. Now, what I want you to notice here is that a force can be coming at you from one of these dimensions, and you learn through Tai Chi how to redirect it to another dimension at your ability. So we'll be looking at that. Typically, when you think of a force, you think of it coming straight at you in a straight line. And the fact is that all forces, unless acted on by an outside force, will travel in a straight line. Force by nature do not bend or move or wave. They go in straight lines. So one of the very exciting features, and I think one of the advantages of Tai Chi, is that we can take a force that goes in one direction and manipulate that. In reality, when you think of someone pushing, like in this exercise here, the push hands, it's classically called brush knee. Looks like there's only one force coming from the hand. But in reality, there's two forces at least. And this is where we think the magic comes from in Tai Chi, is that there's always at least two forces, a downward force and an outward force. Okay? And what I'd like to do for you now is to show you a little demonstration. This is called brush knee. And I'd like to just show you this very proficient lady demonstrating brush knee. And just notice that, yes, she's coming forward, but there's also a turning and a downward motion. All right, so there's more than just one pushing. There's a turning and a dropping. Okay, this is called brush knee. Now, there are other things that happen when you combine forces. So here's an example where you have two forces being combined. And what I want you to notice here is that at a tangent, the resulting force is a tangent, is sort of a sum of those two forces. When you start to work with forces in Tai Chi, you can combine the fact that one hand will be going up and the other hand going down, with the body turning and the whole body going up and down. This combination of forces can actually produce a third or an additional force that is not tangible. It's not attached to you, but it's there, right? It gets created. And a good example of this is the movement called wave hands like clouds. So let's look at this demo of wave hands. Notice the downward turning, and one hand is going up and the other hand is coming down. So you have two different directions of forces going on here. This is called wave hands like clouds. Okay, so let's continue on here. Now, you can do other things. This is the classic using a pendulum or a pivot point to give a lever, which is basically a very powerful thing. So you can lift something much, much heavier than you if you can find the correct pivot point. And the exercise that we practice for that is called snake creeps low. And see, the person goes down and that creates a pivot point. The other types of forces you might notice in day-to-day is a circular force, which causes a centripetal force away from the body. And you can see with this person spinning, there would be a spin out. Now, there's a movement in Tai Chi called Lu, L-U. And this movement has a turning thing, which creates a kind of wave effect. Okay? And when you take a force that would normally be straight and you do a Lu on it, you start to create this waveform shape called a pen. So we're going to look at this Sufi doing a pen movement. Now, at the end, I'll have a credit where you can look at more of this gentleman's work. But for the time being, let's just look at what he does with the pen movement. Notice the wave. It goes down, waves up and down. You can almost see the wave in his motions. Okay. These movements can be combined, and as this gentleman was showing just previously, he was doing a pen and a G movement. These get combined in a classic ancient form, this segment called Pen Lu Ji An, which is perhaps the oldest kata or sequence of movements in Tai Chi. They go back to the very origins of Tai Chi, and it represents the movement of the ocean. You can see the first movement is called the pen, which is where the energy increases to the peak point. And then there's a Lu, where the practitioner turns and redirects the energy. And then there's the G, which is the release of the energy. Until you hit the low point, all the energy is released at the trough. And then there's the An, where it's collected and gathered and brought back in. I'd like to show you our lady in pink doing the Pen Lu Ji An exercise. And again, so I sometimes just practice this one movement, just the Pen Lu Ji An. So this is combining everything that we've talked about up to this point, the turning, the dropping, the using multiple forces to create a third force. And if you can learn one movement to practice, this would be the one I would strongly recommend. Okay, well, I think we're pretty close to the end of the presentation, and I'll do more, and if you want me to focus in on a particular movement in greater detail, I can, or a different aspect of Tai Chi. And if you want to support me, you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/SDOliver and just buy me a coffee. And the proceeds from that will be used to enhance my technology here so I can do better presentations and demos, and hopefully in the future even have guests to discuss these different points. This video will be stored under Tai Chi and under our cosmology. Notice here the credits are here. I will put the credits in the comments so you can find out what the music was I used and who the people were performing. Again, I want to thank you for participating by watching and hopefully by commenting. Have a great day and see you in the next demo.